Welcome to episode number 12 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, Fitness in Prepping, recorded February 2nd, 2019. My name is Eric. I'm the host of the show. I'm based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, VE3, EPN, and computer geek. I got into preparedness when I was working frontline emergency services and witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events such as ice storms, power outages, etc. I started a small preparedness company to help get people prepared and able to better look after themselves for at least 20 or 42, 24, 72 hours, if not longer.
Hi there, my name is Ian. I'm co-host of the show. I live on Vancouver Island on a small hobby farm. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, target shooter, reloader, and my farm's designated handyman. My professional background has allowed me to explore every province and territory in Canada. It has also taught me to adapt to unexpected situations. It reminds me daily that learning never ends.
I'm Alan. My friends and family call me a safety nerd. Background as medical first responder, helped me develop a mind for safety. These days, I teach first aid, coach my friends and family to be better prepared. I'm a locksmith by trade. I've worked in the physical security industry for more than 20 years now.
All right, we've got some great content for you in this episode. We're going to start off with some news articles relating to preparedness in the outdoors. Next, we'll be letting you know how we've improved our preparedness since our last episode. Then we're getting into the main topic for the episode. It involves the importance of physical fitness from a preparedness perspective. So let's get into some news articles.
The big news in my area this week has been the absolutely brutal cold, minus 25, minus 35, wind chills, minus 40s. And then, of course, now that we've got all this snow and the ground is as hard as it can be, we're going to have plus 10 and rain for the rest of the weekend. So the article that I linked to is Global News and made me ask the question, are all your preps safe from flooding?
Well, yeah, even cold weather for the, spoiling the food. Hot weather spoils the food. Now the flooding is something else to worry about as well, I guess.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, the cold weather will do that.
Yeah, it's just bad skidooing overall, I think, with this kind of weather.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so for mine, I didn't want to stick it in anybody's eye for the rubbing it in or anything, but I picked up an article that mentioned that the fact that Winnipeg was for the day colder than Mars. So there's a Global News article as well. Basically, I think Mars was sitting at -7 when Winnipeg was at -33. And basically, I think it was pretty much the coldest place on Earth at that point. And I think it was colder than both the poles as well. So I had to kind of suppress a giggle, but I'm going to pay for it later this week. We're going to be taking a little plunge in the temperatures here as well now, finally.
We're sending it your way.
Yeah. And then the second one I mentioned, it was very interesting from a preparedness perspective, is that not only reactor issues as well on a nuclear basis, but also the fact is power outages can be affected not just by hot weather with nuclear reactors. Usually during the summer, the water gets too hot, so they have to ramp down their power production. But now with the extreme cold weather in New Jersey, they had a reactor shut down because the ice built up on the intakes for the cooling water. So they had to shut down the reactor because they couldn't get enough coolant into the reactor even when it's super cold.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, it was just kind of an odd one-off. I've never seen that one before. Usually it's like in France during the summer, you'll notice that a lot of the brownouts happen because all the rivers in France get too warm. And they have tons of nuclear reactors there. And so they have to ramp down the power production because it's just too warm. But I've never seen one for too cold yet.
I guess they can't just open a window.
Definitely not.
So I've got a news article here from CBC. It's just titled "Bitter Temperatures Expected to Sink Until or Stick Around Until About Friday." So it talks about the frigid air here getting to about -20 to -25 degrees Celsius, with wind gusting up to 70 kilometers an hour. So that was a lot of fun to drive in. I was on the road a lot this past week for work, and just driving around, realizing I can't see in front of me or anything was fun, but at least I had my go bag with me. So if something did happen, I had everything with me I needed to make it through if I ended up stuck in a snowbank. But yeah, the weather was certainly interesting this past week.
Well, I figure just follow the snowplow, but if he goes in the ditch, you're going as well. But usually they generally know what they're doing.
Right.
Or eventually they go over to the Walmart parking lot to the Home Depot parking lot and you haven't gotten anywhere.
Yeah,
this is true. Or driving along and all of a sudden the transport truck that you couldn't see being right in front of you and having to swerve out of the way. Yeah, it's good thing I had an extra pair of underwear in the go bag.
Lots of fun all around.
Oh, yeah. So maybe we'll move into what we've done lately for our preps. So for myself, I cycled through my kit. Like I mentioned, I was on the road a lot last week, and it was quite a distance away from home. So prior to doing that, and as well as getting back from that, because I'm on the road again next week, going even further away. Went through all my kit, made sure anything that's battery operated has been topped up with batteries. As well, when I was home, checked the generator out, because we did have that big dumping of snow. So made sure it was cleared out and made sure there's a good distance of snow cleared away from the intake and the exhaust for the generator, to make sure that if it does need to fire up, that it's actually going to do so and work. And again, made sure that my go bag has been properly restocked and everything's topped up power-wise.
This week, I actually put one of my emergency plans into place. I think I've mentioned I work about 60 kilometers from home. A snowstorm blew through early in the week, and so we decided to put first level of plan in place, which was to meet up in town and go to a friendly location where we knew we had warm food, friendly faces, and a warm bed to sleep, rather than make the drive out to the homestead. It was a simple test of the solid plan. I was able to test what's in my go bag and go back to work the next day as if nothing had gone wrong. So that was a kind of a great little test. Not taking the risk on the ditch or be blown snowplow, etc. In terms of developing new preps, I found a couple of resources through the fire department from New York. FDNY publishes a couple of really cool books, including the Probationary Firefighters Handbook. I mentioned 2 or 3 episodes ago, I was building a playbook for the family of, if A happens, then go to B. And kind of reading how an organization like FDNY puts together their planning and assigns responsibilities for the first arriving units. Kind of put a lot of that in perspective in terms of building a team for your emergency scenarios, your emergency situations, and putting it all, getting everybody to know what to do, when to do it, and if you're the first person to arrive at the safe location, what do you do? If you're the second person, how do you help the first person, etc., until he passes over.
Right. So for myself, I finally came off a big work shift, so now I'm on my quote-unquote summer vacation. So I've got couple weeks off, which is timely for summer, I suppose. And so I managed to rotate some of my fuel storage by dumping some in the vehicles, bought some fresh gas for that. Continued to properly clean up from the big windstorm we had a little while ago. So lots of firewood still to come in here, but of course every time I peel off a layer of branches, the alpacas come in and clean up some more, so I'm giving them free food as well. Check the serviceability of my generator. Continued my brass prep and procurement. I'll get back to that in later on the episode here. Changed out some of my bulbs in the house to from even compact fluorescent or incandescent to LED, just to make it a little more easy to run off the generator. And then I put actually a more water efficient kitchen sink in, kitchen faucet in for the sink, basically just because it's trying to watch our water usage as well. And then today I went to a place called CD Saturday, which is basically a farmer's kind of seedling meat. And so we picked up some perennial food plants to put in the garden for this year that hopefully will keep producing food. And we took our first real crack at something called Jerusalem artichoke, which is kind of a tuber, almost like a potato, but it's certainly hardy and it grows really well.
Oh, awesome. A good point on switching over to the LED lights. I did that about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, just slowly as things were burning out, put in new bulbs, and yeah, it makes life a little bit easier on the generator if you have to use it.
Well, certainly I can light up more of the house and or run the generator at a lower power setting to make your generator more gas efficient at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll move into the main topic of the show. The New Year's resolutions are wearing off, so we'll move into the topic of fitness.
This is a topic that is very near and dear to me. Over the past couple of years, 2 years and a bit, I've lost about 130, 140 pounds almost. Well, there's a long way to go, a lot of battles. Good rule, if you want to know anything about fitness, ask a fat guy. Chances are good he has tried it all and done it all and can tell you exactly what doesn't work. For me, what has worked best is consistent application and getting rid of the sugar. I went hardcore keto diet for about 18 months, and it was hugely helpful. But the more I learn, the more I try, the more I know that the biggest thing you have to do is just do it every single day.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about the sugar too. Is like I think any diet that you go on, no matter what, I think if you watch the sugar more than anything else, it's going to have some successful results. I think it's pretty much pervasive in everything we eat, though, isn't it?
It's really hard to find things that don't have sugar, especially if you're on the road.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, I've started. My wife and I started keto as well, just as soon as I started the vacation here, and immediate results. It's actually kind of funny. It's like just cutting out the starches, for lack of a better term, like sugars and starches, and you feel better after the first what they call the keto flu. Then all of a sudden you start to get a little more alert. You feel better, and yeah, it's the pounds do start to drop off. I noticed my face got thinner right away, and I start to feel better right off the bat.
Absolutely. An interesting point, a good friend of mine about the same time went 100% vegan and has had very similar results. So I can't say that specifically keto, but he and I both eliminated sugar, and it went and it was very beneficial really quickly.
And I'm not picking fly stuff out of Pepper here, but is he vegan or is he vegetarian?
Vegan. And you can tell the difference, right? As soon as, how do you know someone's vegan? Don't worry, just wait 30 seconds, they'll tell you.
Yeah, it's like a CrossFitter or an atheist, same thing, right?
Exactly. And there's no question that he's a vegan. Yeah.
Okay, because some people do like the cheese and the eggs and everything else, the oval pesco, whatever have you, and it depends, I guess, on what you're after too. I guess I know there's problems with anemia long term with 100% vegan, so I guess that's one thing he has to watch out for.
Well, and I mean, he and I both did it while under enough medical supervision to to get regular work and make sure that we're being healthy about it. And again, we both seen very similar results. Cholesterol levels have gone down, and resting blood pressure and resting pulse and all that stuff has leveled off at a more reasonable level. So it seems to be working well for him. The big challenge, I guess, in terms of an emergency, whether it's short term or long term, is being able to sustain that without access to fresh food.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if the grocery stores aren't providing you with your tofurkey or whatever have you. I'm not belittling it. I'm just saying, like, yeah, it can be a very specialized diet, which your local environment doesn't support, right?
Avocado does not grow in minus 40-degree weather.
As a general rule, no, that's for sure. Seems I have an audience here.
So yeah, in terms of food, that's great. It's it's a really important thing. Food by itself, of course, does not make or break one's level of fitness. So the question is, how do we keep fit or prepare for the idea of having a long walk home? 60 kilometers from work to home in a straight line, of course. That's assuming that I can actually get in a straight line from work to home. Depending on the emergency, that could detour me 30 to 50 kilometers. I have highways, bridges, and rivers, train tracks that are all in the way, and depending on the level of emergency and what caused it, I could be 75 to 100 kilometers if I'm going home. If I'm going to a different location, it could be even further.
And on top of that, you're carrying some gear with you as well. Some stuff that you might not always be carrying every day, or a backpack with a little added weight to it. So you got to make sure that cardiovascularly you're able to carry that with you as well, right?
Absolutely. If you're walking and you don't have equipment, you're not getting very far no matter what. So prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? Train with a 75-pound pack, and carrying a 50-pound pack won't mean much.
Did you guys mention the rice and beans aspect? I was just off the microphone for a sec.
Well, we did mention the lack of sustainability in whatever diet you might have when an emergency happens and you can't get to the grocery store.
Yeah, because I mean, like we all talk about storing the rice and the beans and everything else, but I mean, if all you're storing is carbs and proteins or something you don't normally eat, it's very hard to prep for that with the Mylar bags and the sealer and everything else. But I guess if you're used to it, it's one thing, but you might have to go back on the carb diet whether or not you like it.
Well, and I can feel it when I've gone for 8, 10, 14 days, I've been really on point with my diet, and then all of a sudden I lapse and eat carbs, eat bread, eat pasta, whatever. I feel it for days, I feel sluggish and just absolutely terrible. I'm cranky and sluggish and foggy and all that great stuff, and being able to sustain that concept through an entire emergency of 72 hours, a week, 2 weeks until we get back to normal. That's you got to prepare accordingly, right?
Well, I mean, I think I'm the old man in the group here, but I've been steadily battling the weight gain with age. You know, they usually say about a pound a year is kind of normal, but I've been trying my best to keep that off. But so for me, it's like as I'm in my late 40s, LARPing time is over when it comes to fitness, right? So no more pretending to do it. I got to get serious about it here as well. So it's, I guess, especially at my age, it's hard to turn those goals into reality. It's just not as fun as other stuff, right?
Well, it's hard to break habit too, right? If it's not something that is in your daily routine, it's hard to get it into your daily routine and continue doing it, right?
Well, yeah, and I've had to like incorporate it into everyday stuff because I mean, geez, if I don't at least get out and do a dog walk, I feel like death now. But yeah, trying to incorporate like a bigger dog walk up some inclines and up into the sticks behind the house here, so at least that gives me some steep terrain and everything else to play with. But if I don't do that, it's like it doesn't get done. So it's a very tough thing to do.
And that also brings a point up about the difference between functional fitness and theoretical fitness. It's it's one thing to be able to walk 50 or 60 kilometers at a steady pace with a pack on. It's something very different to have to lift and carry and go faster if you had to run to a gate or get away from a thing that was on fire. Being able to sprint as well as to walk or jog is hugely important as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are involved in or interested in preparedness, at least, that are like sitting there behind the keyboard as well, just like myself. Fighting those sedentary jobs in life. You're sitting at a desk or you're sitting at in an office or whatever have you. And yeah, it is hard to break that cycle, I guess, more than anything else.
And you don't realize either, spending that whole day in the office and working away and being concentrated on what you're doing, and then all of a sudden 8, 10, 12 hours has gone by and all you've done is sit at a desk. It's not overly healthy for you either, right? To just be sitting there typing away all day. Not good.
Well, no, I mean, sitting stationary in an office is okay on a day-to-day basis, but of course if you expect something bad to happen and you expect to go super mobile and hike, like Alan said, like an 80 or 50K hike just to get home or whatever, you can't possibly expect to be super mobile that fast, and do that well right off the bat.
No, absolutely not.
So
that takes daily effort and daily practice to make sure that you're ready to go with that.
Yeah, so my old martial arts instructor used to call it, you have to be fighting fit versus Call of Duty fit. Sitting on the couch playing Call of Duty is one thing, but actually going out and doing it and practicing doing actual physical exertion is a different thing for sure.
The strongest thumbs in North America do not help much when it comes time to walk home.
No.
So I guess also too one good thing about being in better shape than you may currently be, or like remaining in good shape, is the fact that whatever calories you do have stored, whether it be in your car, in your basement, or whatever have you. I mean, if you're in better shape, you're going to spend less energy trying to get into shape, and basically it makes for an efficient use of the calories you've actually stored away, rather than trying to get up to snuff during the emergency.
Absolutely. If your daily life you're burning 1,600 calories and you're taking in 1,400, then you're going to lose weight no matter what. And then when time comes, you've got to burn 3,500 to get home, then it's a whole lot easier to find 3,500 calories on your way home than it is to find 10,000, because you need a Snickers bar every 30 seconds.
my blood sugar is falling. Yeah, no.
What was that from? Paul Blart, I want to say. Was it? Paul Blart Mall Cop?
Mall Cop, yeah.
I think you're right, yeah.
Can't go 15 minutes without a Snickers, yeah.
So actually, as far as getting into shape without really, without trying, so to speak, I was talking to the other guys on the other podcast, post show, I think it was, and on the text today, is that one of the things they mentioned a couple of times before I joined that episode or that show was they'd wear their plate carriers on a dog walk just to trigger their neighbors, but also they'd wear it at the range as well. So they'd be sitting there with 30 pounds of armor protection, like bulletproof plates on their chest, as well as like it's a passive weight that actually helps them, slowly work out over time. And it's no different than wearing a weight belt or a backpack full of gear or anything else. It just had the tactical cool advantage as well. But it was a very interesting way to kind of build up muscles without really even paying attention to it. And they were, I think a couple of the guys were even going as far as doing shooting competitions wearing the plate carrier.
As you train, so shall you fight, right?
That's right. And so exactly. So when the time comes to actually, if it, the balloon goes up, so to speak, for them, I mean, they're wearing the gear they would plan to wear. So this is actually, like you said, fight like you train like you fight. So
You beat me to it. Yep.
yeah, and then another trick they were mentioning. Well, I think Andrew mentioned it with us with our first date episode. There was, take the stairs when you get to a hotel, a building, whatever have you. Familiarizes yourself with the alternate exits. But by the same token, if you're on the 10th floor going up, hey, you get some exercise out of the deal too.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no harm in taking the stairs at your office building, wherever you work. It familiarizes you with an alternate exit first off, and it's good for you. Why not?
Yeah,
I remember coming home from the 3 days worth of duty hours at when they had that blackout in 2003, and I lived on the 25th floor of my building, and I had steel toe boots that felt like they weighed about 10,000 pounds at that exact moment, and I looked up the dark stairwell and I went, not today. I'd done it before, but that was not the day. Better Fitness, I may have actually made that climb.
I remember they actually had contests in New York for a while, like running up the stairs of the Empire State Building. They'd have like almost like what do you call those skating things where they'd raise money by do skate-a-thons or whatever. But they do like stair climbing things for the Empire State and try and raise money doing that way. It was kind of funny.
There's one of those in London every year it's a United Way fundraiser, and they do the tallest building in London is 28 stories, which is still nothing compared to the Empire State Building, but they do relays up the stairs there to raise money. Same concept.
Yeah, they do the same thing at the CN Tower in Toronto.
And there you go. And so, from a tactical perspective as well, when it comes to tactical parking, that's good. Maybe we should incorporate that one into our lingo. But for tactical parking purposes, if you park at the far end of the parking lot, closest to the exit, make a clean getaway. You get a long walk out of it, and at least you might have to carry your groceries farther. Get a little bit of passive exercise that way as well.
I'm going to call it tactical parking from now on.
That's it.
Yeah.
And always do the Magnum PI thing. I'm dating myself again. But anyways, where you back the car into the park space so you can get out faster. You don't have to back out and do the T thing.
I back my car in everywhere. Always have, always will.
Same here. And now I'm going to tactically back it up.
That's right. As soon as I say tactical, it sounds better anyway, right?
It does, yes.
Well, my car's black, so it makes good sense. It has to be by definition tactical.
There you go. I see, mine's gray for a very good reason.
Doesn't have to do with our last episode, does it?
Nothing to do with it at all. And actually, I had to put my money where my mouth is. Actually, to peel a sticker off the back of my truck this week too. That was one of the other things I did in Paradise this week. Is I took the easily identifiable sticker off the back of my truck because I realized I had one too. Yeah, so I guess another thing for prepping purposes, I guess when the time comes, if you're used to doing long walks, even short walks, I mean, a walk doesn't seem as daunting when you first have to do it and contemplate it. Walking home, to go pick up your kids or whatever doesn't seem as paralyzing mentally, right?
Absolutely. When you're used to doing it, then it becomes, pardon the pun, it becomes a walk in the park rather than a something to be endured.
Absolutely. Somebody else came up with another point there, right?
I've honestly lost track of where I am in the.
There you go. So somebody came up with
plate carriers. Yep.
Lifting supplies and being able to pack in a hurry.
Oh yeah. So walking and running are good. Lifting and carrying are also good, and combining the two is even better. So, if the power goes out, you've got to move things around. Gallon of water weighs 10 pounds. We carry a gallon of water per person per day, so that's a lot of weight to move around. If you're stacking firewood, theoretically in an emergency, life gets harder. So the stronger you are, the more adaptable you are to that scenario, which of course can be taken too far. Did you guys watch the was it first or second, the first couple of seasons of Survivor, way back in the beginning times of reality TV? There were a couple of guys that were just absolute jacked. They were power lifters, and couple of days without their normal diet, they were crashing. They couldn't do anything. They were totally useless.
Well, yeah, if you see the actually intake required for those guys, it's insane. Like, and not that I'm a big fan per se, but anyways, we were watching something on The Rock the other day on YouTube, and what the guy ate in a day was insane, right? And I mean, yeah, he's Hollywood fit, everything else, but if he needs 4,000 calories a day to get by, he's not doing well. It's bad times, right?
That's a lot of calories.
Yeah.
It's a lot. That's a lot of calories to go through in a day, and that's, you know, if that's your life in your everyday, that's fine. Just don't expect to be at your peak performance when you don't have ready access to a grocery store. And so, what are you going to do? How are you going to overcome that? How are you going to be prepared to overcome that when the trucks stop rolling because of those snowstorms?
Yeah, I mean, actually, just out of curiosity with the snowstorms, though, guys, was there actually any sort of interruption to truck deliveries or anything else that you noticed?
Yeah, when I was out and about, a lot of the roads were closed. A lot of vehicles are just sitting staring at the road closed signs, wondering, what do I do now? This is the only direction I know how to get to the location I'm going to. So a lot of temporary disruptions, but they were certainly there and they were in place.
The roads closed around my area for a few hours, more than a few days. The main highway nearby has a bit of a history of being closed in bad weather with good reason. Whoever built a freeway directly in line with the snow belt wasn't planning terribly well, but that particular highway is known for having just piles and piles of snow dumped on it. So it's often closed, but there are enough kind of side roads that there was no major interruption, although I'm sure there are enough people that noticed it, but nothing to be life-threatening or excited about.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, I remember that when I lived Southern Ontario as well. Yeah, having the highway along the snow belt was always sporting at times for sure.
Well, that's one of my pinch points. Right? If I'm getting home, I have to cross that highway, and so I can travel along it if it's open. If it's not, then there are only 2 or 3 ways to get across it before I get into trouble. So that's one of the points where I may have to ditch my car and hike the rest of the way home.
Okay. Well, I guess one other aspect of the preparedness fitness thing, for those of you that are into the shooting sports as well, or archery, there's a reason these Olympians that go out and do shooting, they actually work out daily to work on their arm strength and everything else. Because I mean, when it comes to holding up the movement steady on target, you want to make sure you have good forearm strength, everything else. So I mean, you'll see these competitive shooters working out as much as they're shooting, right?
Well, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, a lot of these guys, they have their muscle mass and, basically affects the side-to-side aspect of the shot. And, of course, the breathing, even being able to breathe at a lower rate, keeps you steady on shot as well. Because, I mean, breathing affects the up and down on the shot as well, right?
I was just going to say that my cousin's in the military. He was telling me about his 7 qualification, which is kind of running, like sprinting between target points and then having to get rounds on paper. And he said, after the 3rd or 4th sprint, when you're breathing so heavily you can't hold yourself still, and then having to try and aim and fire became significantly more challenging. So the more fit you are and the more adaptable you are to whether it's a marathon or sprint, being able to control your breathing because you're in good physical condition will certainly make everything easier when the worst doesn't.
Well, that's where I think a lot of these, like you'll notice Nut and Fancy does running guns. You'll see, is it ORA or is it Ontario Service Conditions? Anyways, in Ontario, they do running as well. And then when you're trying to breathing heavy and you're trying to make your shot, it's actually amazing how much conditioning you need to do that well, right?
Absolutely.
And you had something as well, Al?
I should probably keep back on my
sprints versus marathons.
Yeah, sprints versus marathons. So they both take a lot of calories. The hockey players are, you compare hockey players to speed skaters. Hockey players make sprints much better than speed skaters do, but speed skaters can go the distance that hockey players can't. I remember seeing that years ago. It was during an Olympic event or just before the Olympics, and they took an Olympic speed skater and an Olympic hockey player, put them end to end. Hockey player beat them down the ice, but then the speed skater was able to go back and forth 6 or 7 more times than the hockey player was. So being able to do both, right? If you have to hike 100 clicks with a backpack, is important. If you have to sprint and dodge to get out of the city, and then once you're out of the city, be able to get to your destination. Understanding the difference between those two. So sprinting is they take up very different amounts of energy, but they both take a lot of energy and a lot of training to be able to go that distance.
Yeah, especially if you make your big trek home, right?
or wherever it is that you're going. My secondary location is a whole lot further away than my primary location. If I can't get home, then we're going a lot further, and that takes a whole lot more time, which then of course means I have to carry more equipment if I want to get there without having to catch my dinner along the way.
Well, another mentioned, the good reason to stay, I guess, in shape for preparedness purposes is if hopefully staying in shape will help prevent health issues that may come up, but also might prevent some from coming up during a suspension of normal medical services. I mean, if you're not used to doing running and also hiking, and all of a sudden you tear an ankle or whatever have you, because you're so tired, you don't want to have those fatigue-related accidents, whether it be swinging an axe because you've never swung an axe before, or whatever have you. It's like best to do it now and get used to it, right?
Absolutely, that functional ability makes life a whole lot easier. When I worked in kind of heavier trades, I'm a soft office worker now, but when I worked in construction, the first couple of weeks, I would come home just absolutely sore and tired, couldn't walk the next day, and I was 30 to 50% most of the time. But after a few months, picking up and carrying heavy objects up the stairs, down the stairs became second nature to me, and it was a whole lot easier. And as much as I don't miss those days of working on a construction site in -30, there was certainly an advantage to having that functional ability.
Well, of course, if you're doing a steady diet of chips and pop right now too, and you have to switch over to freeze-dried veggies, rice, and sewer rat, it's going to be a big change to your system as well. So best just drop the chips and pop now, right?
Oh yeah, that'll be quite the shock to the system.
Don't take the sewer rat up right now. I'm just saying. That's an emergency.
Yeah,
that's a last ditch. Yeah,
absolutely.
One of the things I noticed, there's I don't know if you guys follow the Urban Prepper. He's in the Seattle area, I want to say. He'll do 72 or 96 hours on his rations, like on his preps, and kind of document how it feels to actually live on an energy bar for a couple of days, and it's something that is probably a really good idea for us to put into practice. That we can have all the freeze-dried Mountain House, whatever it is in our storage, but if we never taste it, if we never have to live on it, then when the time comes, knowing how it's going to affect our bodies is really important as well.
Well, because there's a lot of chemical preservatives that, for all you know, you might be allergic to if you've never tried one. I mean, I made a point of cooking up one each of the Mountain Houses. I end up storing up in various places. And one thing I haven't tried yet, have you guys tried those Datrex rations or Datrex? I'm not sure what you call
them. Not yet.
I try and stay as far away from the ration as I can, both in my preps and in my everyday life. I've had enough MREs in my life that I'm not interested in doing that anymore. So I plan accordingly. There's a lot more jerky and canned tuna in my pantry than there is things that have that 25-year shelf life.
Yeah, I mean, the Datrex has wheat in it. One of my daughters isn't very good with wheat, so that's one thing. So we can't really do that. But I've seen them everywhere, and I've got a couple friends that use them. I was just kind of curious what you guys thought of them.
Yeah, they're small little brick. They're good for storage, but I haven't heard anything bad. But I haven't tried them myself.
So is fruitcake. That doesn't make it a good thing to eat.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yep.
Well, again, I'm not sure if you want to eat it steady for like a week either. So.
Yeah, I think it's more designed just for a quick get you through sort of thing versus a long-term solution.
Yeah. Excellent. So, any other thing we also want to talk on for the fitness aspect?
I guess first, fitness, just on my side of things, if you're looking at doing like the gym thing or getting into weights and cardio workouts and such, just start small. I know everybody kind of thinks they're going to sign up and start pushing these big heavy weights around. There's no need to be jumping in and throwing 45, 50-pound weights around because you think that's what you're going to be doing. Just go in and start small and work your way up, and just realize the fact that it's going to take time to get to a level that you want to get to.
Well, I think you're far better off to be toned with what the muscle mass you have than it is to try and bulk up right off the bat and try and look like The Rock or whatever. I mean, way better off with a toned setup.
Absolutely, and don't rush into things.
And don't be afraid to hire a trainer as well. Somebody who has the experience. If that's foreign to you. I know I learned a lot from spending a few sessions with a trainer. It changed the way that I approached my fitness, which then of course translates into greater success down the road. Because if you get hurt while you're doing that, you're not going to do yourself any favors, and you're also not going to. So you're going to set yourself back, and then you're going to make it harder for harder to want to go back and build that fitness again.
Well, absolutely. And even keeping a trainer on every once in a while, once you get comfortable with things, just to mix things up and give you a new routine and make sure that you're not falling out of form is worth its weight in gold. No pun intended.
Form is definitely better than volume. It's great to be able to say that you can squat 14,000 pounds, but if you blow your knees out when you do it, then it's not a great thing no matter what.
Oh, absolutely.
Back to those repetitive injuries again. You don't want to pop up during bad times either, right?
Yep,
exactly.
Well, time for the podcast challenge.
I think so.
All right, so your podcast challenge this week, I came up with something that I've actually kind of had to work with as well. See if we can get everybody to try and walk eventually with your bug out bag on your back eventually, but start just walking. 5K, 5 days out of every 7. So 5 days a week, just try and do a 5K walk. Bonus points if you're carrying a weight that includes a plate carrier, I guess, and try to go extra tactical in the city, especially in the city. That'd be more sporting, I think. But or if you're not a walker and the weather's warm, try biking 20K, because I mean, obviously it's going to be a little bit easier to bike 5K. Same thing, 5 days out of 7, 20K. When you're used to it, try throwing a 30-pound weighted backpack on when you're biking around. It certainly get you into shape real fast. I say keep it up until it's a habit.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, full disclosure, guys. I do my 5K walk a day, but I have been very, very bad about carrying the weight around. And actually, my wife's I don't know if you can see it back up there, but there's a backpack up there that we're gonna be like throwing 30 pounds just worth of various weights in there just to see if I can actually start doing it, because I'm just as bad as anybody else right now.
I've got a funny feeling we're getting an email from all the panelists on the Canadian Patriot podcast saying they've completed the challenge with their carriers.
Well, I don't know if they've gone 5K though, 5 days out of 7, so we'll see. I guess the alternative, if you don't want to do that for a podcast challenge, if that's too much, just try an actual bug out on foot, depending on how far you plan on going. But if you plan on walking 10K to your bug out location, or you're just going from work to home, school to home, whatever, just try doing that once and then see how that affects you. And I guess that'll probably be a proper motivator as well.
Absolutely. And then once you've completed it, flip us an email at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. And let us know how it went for you, what went right, what went wrong, what you learned from it, and any kind of feedback that you'd want to let other listeners know about. We'll move into some shout-outs.
So you didn't have any today, Eric?
No shout-outs for me this time around, nope.
Alrighty. I've got two. I've got one for my, call him my unnamed homesteading mentor. He's watching the show right now as well. So the way I described it to my wife was like hanging with him is kind of like drinking from the fire hose of knowledge, yet fun at the same time. And he's been very generous with his time the last week or so. So I really appreciate that, because I've learned a lot. And also there's a guy, he goes by the nickname Bogey on a couple different websites. He's on Gun Owners of Canada under Bogey. And then also, I think because of username issues, he had to go with MDRGC, which is the name of his gun club in Vancouver. But anyways, Bogey himself, he raises money for kids programs at his local Vancouver range. He goes to the range with the permission of the range people, grabs all the spent brass on the line, sorts it all out, and sells it relatively cheaply on the internet for us reloaders. And all the proceeds, even because he's a retired guy, he sends all the proceeds off to the gun range to fund all the kids clubs, so the kids can shoot for free, have targets paid for it and everything else. So I think it's a great way to give back to the sport for sure.
Awesome. So, does he have a website? No,
he just goes by Bogey on GOC and then MDRGC on Canadian Gun Nuts. And then basically he has brass for sale all the time. And like I said, it's probably the cheapest you're ever going to find anywhere. But it all goes to charity, so it's pretty awesome.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. Two shout outs for me. One to an Instagram account that I follow. You can follow at textbook_survival. All kinds of really cool tips and tricks there. And she's a real fan of making printables. So checklists and concepts that you can print, throw in your bag, and reminders of what to do. And also a quick shout out to my kids who are patiently listening on the watching us live right now in a new show, and especially the Alpaca Farm out on the island there.
Sounds good. Hey, so the alpacas, I just want to let her know they appreciate having a fan, that's for sure. But actually, just a quick question. Do you have, for the textbook survival, do you have some sort of way to find is on YouTube, you said?
Instagram. Textbook, yeah, follow on Instagram, textbook_survival. And yeah, lots of cool stuff there.
I'll have to get on that one of these days, but for now I'm kind of shunning all the social media as best I can, except for this one, it seems.
Right on.
So maybe we'll move into some listener email. So we've got, just pull the emails up here. So we got one from the Torque Master again. This one reads, "Thanks again for another enlightening podcast. You fellows are the best. Regarding this week's prepper challenge, it took over 3 hours to peel the various Sasquatch and gun decals off the scientist's massive 6-wheel drive ex-military deuce and a half. I fell off the ladder only once.
It's now more subtle at some point.
To make the beast look less conspicuous, we got out the brush and roller, painted it yellow, then applied some decals of the Beatles. She has now been rechristened the Yellow Submarine."
Perfect.
Or she just had maybe water tours or something on the side, and little tour buses go around Vancouver and Halifax and stuff. Yeah, hop on bus tours. But well, I want to know where I can get a deuce and a half. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. There's more to the email here. It says, "So for now on, when a crowd is gathered, we fit right in, blaring rock and roll music through the newly added sound system. We stealthily move through the crowd. And what else we got here? As an added bonus, we make a few bucks selling Beatles music and memorabilia. We are patiently awaiting next week's words of wisdom."
Well, actually, now I'm starting to think we should get them on here one of these days. If it wouldn't break the gray man theory for them anyways, but...
Well, they don't have to come on camera, right? We can always just put a picture of audio only for them.
Yeah, let's put a picture of an alpaca, and then maybe just give them a voice modulator. And...
Yeah, we can do a voice modulator. They probably have a few just sitting in the car there.
Well, yeah, I mean, they got to mask their voices when they're hunting down the Sasquatches too, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I think the only way that they can be on the show is if they do it in full gas masks, and then we won't be able to see or understand what they're saying or hear what they're saying.
They got to wear tinfoil hats too, though.
Oh, one of these days we'll have to break out ours and just I'll go on a tinfoil hat episode or something.
Oh, I always have mine with me.
Just trying to sound normal. Come on.
Ignore the tinfoil hat over here.
Yeah.
So we've got another email here from Jonathan. It says, "Hi, a friend of mine recommended the podcast since I'm looking into getting a ham radio license. So far, I've listened to the ham episodes and about the Gray Man. I really enjoyed listening to them. It's great to have the Canadian podcast about preparedness. So he's got a question. In the ham radio episode, you guys mentioned it's not allowed to broadcast encrypted messages, and the message have to be in plain language. Does that mean that you can't use some kind of code like the bird is on the nest, which makes sense as a sentence, but has a hidden meaning, or something like the tree is playing chess, which doesn't even make sense as a sentence? What about speaking in a language other than English?" And he's got another question in regards to confirming if it's legal in Canada to own a transceiver without a license, as long as you don't transmit, and that it shouldn't be a problem for someone without a license to bring a transceiver into the country from abroad.
Well, first of all, I saw that line in Red Dawn, the 80s version Red Dawn, where they had the coded messages, and yeah, good idea. But I don't know unless you had I think a publicly available code book. I think it's a problem, right?
Yeah, it's usually the way it's worded is the method of encryption still needs to be publicly available. That's the way it's worded. I'm not going to give out any real legal advice here.
Yeah.
But that's how it's worded. If you're going to use encryption, it still needs to be publicly available, and other people on the frequency need to be able to decode what it is that you're saying. That being said, would they necessarily even realize that it is a code you're saying? If you're using a sentence that just means something else to another person, probably not. But that's the way it's written. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, I mean, if you're on HF and you're going long distance and contacting people across the world, I mean, clearly English isn't the only language spoken on the radio. So, I mean, yeah, if you happen to be fluent in German and you're talking to a guy in Germany, I can't see the problem, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, yeah. So.
Yeah, the language thing, and I've heard it even here, just operating in Ontario. You will hear other languages on the frequencies. The two main languages in Canada are obviously English and French. As far as using the other languages, I find if I come on a frequency and people are speaking another language, and I come on and I start speaking English, as a courtesy, they tend to switch back into English. But as far as using another language, I don't know anything that prohibits you from doing so. But it's usually a common courtesy thing to move back to English or French if somebody comes onto a frequency speaking that language. And then as far as the possession of a radio transceiver goes, I'm just going to point you towards the Radio Communication Act, Section 4, Sub 1A and B. If you want to refer to those, have a read over them, and however it is you interpret that section is how you interpret it, because I'm not going to be giving out legal advice on the show, but that would be the section I would point you to. And as far as crossing the border, yeah, not going there with a 10-foot pole.
Some guy on the internet told me it was okay, therefore it must be allowed.
Not happening. If you're really concerned, I'm sure you could contact the CBSA and ask them. I'm sure they would happily answer your question, but I'm not making comment. So yeah, just the Radio Communications Act, Section 4, Sub 1A and B, and go from there, or read the whole thing if you want. It probably spells out everything that you're going to want to know.
That's for a night when you just can't sleep.
Yes, yeah, that it definitely induces nappy time. As far as any iTunes reviews go, we are up to 11 5-star ratings. We've still got that one 4-star rating. Like I said, I'll take it, and no new reviews, or written reviews anyways, since the last show. The most recent still being M14 Medic from January 22nd.
Right on.
Yeah.
Take 5 stars wherever we can get them.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see. I think that is my my list.
All right. I guess time for the outro.
If I can get my notes back up here. Let's see. Yep, that's my list.
Glad I'm not the only one.
Too many screens open all at once. Multitasking. So, where can people find the show after I bring episode 12 of the Canadian Prepper podcast to an end?
You can find this podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and take a few minutes to submit a review. Helps other people find us. Also gives us something to talk about. You can also find us at theprepperpodcast.ca. YouTube live shows are now available. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Island Retreat. Click the notification button. Gives you an alert when we're going live.
All right. If you want to contact Ian directly, you can reach me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. I love to answer questions specific to Western Canada. I'm also looking forward to helping local preppers take their first steps. You can also occasionally find me giving my 2 cents worth on Canadian Patriot Podcast, also available on iTunes and YouTube. There you'll find me chatting about the merits of a freer society, bemoaning more government waste, and even diving into the occasional tactically driven conversation.
And you can check out rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there in the live chat while you're buying some prepper gear. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Thanks for joining us, and tune in next episode where we're going to talk about basic orienteering. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe, and
keep learning.